You didn't stumble into this moment. It was orchestrated with precision. Every delay, every detour, and every disappointment has converged into this defining point. You've reached the edge of hesitation and the threshold of destiny. The time for wondering, analyzing, and second-guessing is over. This is the moment where you step into everything that has been waiting for your movement. God has been aligning circumstances, adjusting timelines, and preparing the ground beneath your feet for this command: move forward. There comes a time when waiting becomes resistance, when inaction transforms into quiet rebellion against what has already been spoken. You've prayed for confirmation, but confirmation arrived long ago. The delay isn't about clarity, it's about courage. As 2 Corinthians 6 verse 2 reminds you, now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation. This is not just another day. This is the day where reluctance must surrender to obedience. Many confuse caution for wisdom, but wisdom doesn't paralyze, it propels. Waiting for the perfect sign often disguises a quiet reluctance to risk. Yet what if your next step is the very signal you've been waiting for? What if the miracle you've been praying about is locked behind a single act of courage? God's timing doesn't consult your comfort, it confronts it. The longer you linger, the heavier the calling feels. Isaiah 60 verse 1 proclaims, "Arise, shine, for your light has come." That light represents readiness. The same light that broke through darkness at creation is breaking through your hesitation right now. You've been equipped, instructed, and tested through countless seasons. This isn't about starting from scratch. It's about stepping into what's been refined through your endurance. Fear often speaks louder at the edge of transformation. It whispers of failure, lack, and inadequacy. But fear is not the voice of caution. It's the echo of old limitations trying to keep you confined. Every story of progress begins with someone who moved while afraid. Abraham didn't have a map. He had a word. Hebrews 11 verse 8 says, "By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go. He stepped before he saw." That's what movement in alignment looks like: obedience before understanding. There is no provision without pursuit. When God instructs you to move, He has already secured what you'll need along the way. The fear of not having enough dissolves once you realize that the journey itself unlocks the resources. You're not being asked to comprehend the whole picture. You're being asked to trust the one who holds it. Each step reveals the next, and each act of courage strengthens your conviction. This is your prophetic turning point. Indecision is no longer neutral, it's costly. God's timeline isn't waiting for you to feel ready, it's waiting for your agreement. The door will not stay open forever. The opportunity you've been circling has an expiration date attached to hesitation. You've been equipped with enough strength to move, enough clarity to decide, and enough faith to advance. The waiting season has accomplished its purpose. You've learned, healed, and matured, but growth without movement becomes stagnation. God isn't whispering anymore. He's declaring. The signs you've prayed for are standing in front of you in the form of this word. The confirmation is here. The instruction is clear. The moment is charged with purpose. This is not the time to retreat or delay. It's time to arise, to step into what was promised, to move without looking back. The chapter has turned and the page is waiting for your motion. It's time to make your final move. Don't hesitate. There comes a moment when what once felt safe begins to feel heavy. What was designed to protect you starts to restrain you. The walls of familiarity, the patterns that once brought ease, suddenly feel like chains. Comfort quietly becomes your cage, and God calls you beyond it. This isn't a threat. It's a summons into the fullest expression of your life. The instant you recognize this shift is the instant your eyes open to the next stage of purpose. You cannot remain tethered to what feels secure and still expect to step into the extraordinary. It's important to understand that comfort is deceptive. It disguises stagnation as stability, routine as progress, and ease as fulfillment. While it lulls the mind into peace, it slowly stifles the soul. True growth, however, begins where familiarity ends. Genesis 12 verse 1 reminds us, "Go from your country to the land I will show you." Abraham's journey was not comfortable. It was uncertain, disorienting, and filled with risk. Yet that risk birthed the legacy that shaped nations. Likewise, God's call often comes through disruption. What feels like loss is actually liberation. What appears inconvenient is often preparation. Leaving your safe zone does not mean leaving God behind. The Creator is intentional. He does not remove support to punish, but to position. Each displacement, each shift in routine is carefully orchestrated to stretch your capacity, reveal your potential, and align you with destiny. Spiritual maturity is rarely achieved in convenience. It is forged in courage. The steps that feel the hardest, the moves that frighten you most, are often the ones that carry the deepest blessing. Philippians 3 verse 13 to 14 exhorts us to forget what is behind and strain toward what is ahead. Forgetting the past is not denial. It is acknowledgement that God has more than what you have left behind. Comfort tempts the soul to pause, to remain in what is known, to settle for patterns that appear harmless. But every calling disrupts stability to cultivate strength. Faith begins in uncertainty. Growth is activated when ease is interrupted. The future cannot be grasped through the lens of what is familiar. It can only be reached by stepping into the unknown with trust. The familiar may be pleasing, but it cannot carry you to the fullness of purpose God has prepared. Every time you cling to ease, you delay the unfolding of potential within you. Taking the step forward demands more than willingness. It requires boldness. The hardest step is often the holiest one. The cross that Matthew 16 verse 24 speaks of is not just an external burden. It is the internal choice to let go of what binds you and follow where God leads. Each act of obedience is a declaration that God's vision outweighs personal preference. You may not see the road ahead, but the hand that called you will guide every step. Trust becomes the bridge between where you are and where you are destined to be. This call is intimate and urgent. You are being summoned to relinquish the security of the known in exchange for the possibilities of the promised. You are being asked to take the steps that make others hesitate, to rise above the inertia that keeps many stagnant. Leaving comfort behind is not a loss. It is the first act of liberation on the road to destiny. The God who led you to this awareness will not abandon you. The provision, the guidance, and the strength needed are already aligned to your obedience. You cannot reach destiny while clinging to comfort. The familiar cannot carry you into the extraordinary. Every hesitation keeps you rooted where God intends you to grow, and every step of trust moves you closer to what has been waiting for you all along. The path ahead is not without challenge, but it is overflowing with purpose. You see, every time you whispered later, the heavens heard something entirely different. Delay is not a neutral pause. It is a subtle derailment of destiny. Each postponed step allows hesitation to grow roots in the heart and builds invisible walls around what could have been breakthrough. What appears cautious often conceals rebellion. Procrastination dresses itself in reason, claiming wisdom. But the truth is sharper. Every deferred yes weakens your alignment with the timing of God. The moment that calls for action is never neutral. Inaction carries consequences that ripple beyond your imagination. The enemy knows the power of hesitation. It is camouflage that appears safe but conceals destruction. The longer you linger, the more the window of opportunity narrows and the weight of obedience grows heavier. Every hour spent in delay trains the heart to ignore God's voice, making the familiar patterns of waiting feel like sanctuary, while secretly entrenching stagnation. Hebrews 3 verse 15 warns, "Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts." Hearing is not enough. Listening must be followed by response. Resistance to immediate action hardens the soul against the very plan that was designed for your highest good. God's timing is precise, and every resource needed to walk in alignment is already poised to meet your step. When the call says now, heaven is ready, provision, favor, clarity, and open doors are positioned in expectation of your movement. Hesitation is the only thing that interrupts the flow. Proverbs 13 verse 4 reminds us that the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. Diligence is more than effort. It is timely obedience. It's responding to the prompt without over-analyzing, stepping forward with courage, and claiming the opportunity that has been reserved for you. Every second spent waiting beyond the appointed moment slows the momentum that God has orchestrated. It is essential to recognize that postponement is not harmless. The heart becomes accustomed to hesitation, and decision-making at critical junctures becomes clouded with unnecessary fear. When you resist the call, the weight of the next step compounds. Obedience grows more difficult not because the task itself has changed, but because repeated hesitation erodes the readiness to respond. Psalm 119 verse 60 declares, "I will hasten and not delay to obey your commands." This is not just a statement of intention, it is a spiritual principle. Speed in response unlocks acceleration in destiny. Swift obedience invites the supernatural. The doors of provision swing open, opportunities manifest, and alignment with purpose multiplies beyond natural expectation. Fear often masquerades as prudence, and caution dresses up in the language of wisdom. Yet wisdom that paralyzes is not from God. True discernment propels movement even when the path is uncertain. Delay is the enemy's most effective weapon because it appears benign. Each deferred yes hardens your heart to the rhythm of God's calling, creating distance between you and the blessings that were poised to arrive. The soul designed for action suffers under inaction, and potential is left unclaimed. The call to respond immediately is urgent. Momentum is a spiritual principle. It cannot be recovered once lost. Every moment of stillness beyond the appointed time risks missing the convergence of resources, revelation, and favor that are set to intersect with your obedience. Inaction disconnects you from what has already been prepared, turning acceleration into delay and blessing into stagnation. Your destiny requires motion. Swift action bridges the gap between the promise and the manifestation, between preparation and fulfillment. Do not let fear, doubt, or indecision masquerade as prudence. The cloud is moving. Opportunities are aligning. The hour for waiting has passed. Every delay after this point is not harmless. It is disobedience in disguise. The choice to move, to say yes with courage, will define your breakthrough. Swift obedience is not only an act of trust, it is the vehicle through which your purpose accelerates and your destiny manifests. The path ahead is ready for your step. Don't wait, step into what has been prepared. And as you step, be prepared. The path that demands your faith will also shape your destiny. God's hardest instructions often carry the greatest rewards, and the path that challenges you the most is the path that leads to the highest elevation. The assignments that feel uncomfortable, inconvenient, or even impossible are precisely where God's refinement takes root. Your willingness to step into the hard places demonstrates not just commitment, it reveals covenant trust. Every obstacle, every weight, every resistance is a testing ground for the power and authority He intends for you to carry. Hard steps expose hidden fears that have lingered unnoticed. Fear doesn't disappear simply because God calls you to move. It surfaces to be confronted. Every moment of resistance, hesitation, or internal argument is an invitation to choose courage over comfort. Luke 9 verse 23 reminds us, "Take up your cross daily and follow me." The cross is not symbolic of ease. It represents sacrifice, surrender, and the daily decision to obey even when the cost is high. What you consider painful or unnecessary may be the very instrument through which your capacity is expanded. Obedience in difficulty is the clearest evidence of trust. The world measures success by convenience and reward, but God measures readiness by courage and persistence. James 1 verse 12 declares, "Blessed is the one who remains steadfast under trial." Blessing is not merely a promise of reward, it is a reflection of perseverance. Endurance in hard decisions builds spiritual muscle, shaping your character and preparing you for assignments that cannot be handled from a place of ease. Each hard yes is a seed planted for exponential impact. Pain is not accidental. It is often the refining fire that strengthens the vessel. God uses difficult circumstances to enlarge your capacity to receive what you could not manage before. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 17 assures us, "Our light affliction is producing an eternal weight of glory." Your present challenge, your current cross, and your demanding instructions are constructing the weight of authority and influence that will carry far beyond the moment. What seems like loss is in reality the qualification that positions you for lasting significance. Every biblical breakthrough, from Joseph's rise from prison to Moses' leadership of a nation, was preceded by a hard decision that tested commitment and obedience. Faith does not erase fear. It overrides it. The courage to act in spite of discomfort is what moves mountains. Fear will always seek to redefine your threshold for obedience to convince you that ease equates with blessing. The truth is almost always the opposite. Your greatest triumph is born in tension. Your highest expansion emerges from your willingness to endure, and your most significant promise comes through the place that feels hardest to walk. Your hardest yes is your highest seed, and it carries the fruit of both maturity and impact. Difficult choices are not random. They are invitations to move beyond what is natural into what is supernatural. The trials you encounter are designed to refine, not reject. They separate hesitation from decisiveness, weakness from resolve, and delay from destiny. When you embrace the hard thing, you participate in the work God has already prepared for you. Each challenging step becomes proof of your alignment, a living testament to the obedience that produces growth, authority, and spiritual fruit. The road to glory always passes through obedience. Nothing of eternal value arrives through convenience or avoidance. What challenges you now will later become the holy proof of your trust, the story of your refinement, and the foundation of influence that cannot be shaken. The hardest decisions, the sacrifices that demand courage, and the discomfort that presses against the flesh are not obstacles. They are the sacred instruments God uses to mold greatness. Every pain, every struggle, every deliberate step taken in trust is constructing the legacy of your purpose. Beloved, timing is not a suggestion. It is the pulse through which purpose flows. When God says now, it is not an open invitation to debate, procrastinate, or negotiate. It is a command calibrated to unlock provision, acceleration, and influence. Every instruction has a window, and every window has a limit. Miss the appointed moment, and what was once accessible may vanish into a season that will not repeat. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season." Every opportunity, every call, every step forward carries a divine timestamp that aligns purpose with preparation. Ignoring the rhythm of this season is more than oversight. It is postponing destiny. Divine instructions operate within synchronized systems. When God speaks move, He has already prepared the path, aligned the resources, and positioned the alliances necessary for fulfillment. Isaiah 55 verse 6 calls us to seek the Lord while He may be found. Seeking is not passive. It is urgent action in alignment with the moment. Opportunities that are delayed do not linger indefinitely. The timing of God coordinates power and provision in ways human understanding cannot replicate. Hesitation places you out of sync, and late obedience, though still recognized, does not carry the momentum of the appointed time. Delay converts a divine opening into a spiritual drought, and stagnation often disguises itself as patience or wisdom. Heaven's favor is not measured by human schedules, but by responsiveness to the voice that moves in season. John 9 verse 4 states, "We must work while it is day, for night is coming when no one can work." Night represents the expiration of opportunity, the closing of a window that will not reopen. God's now is designed to align intention with action, readiness with resource, and courage with provision. Waiting beyond the intended time risks losing the very blessing you sought. The grace that accompanies obedience operates only within the appointed moment. Once the season closes, the miraculous potential of that time may shift to a new assignment, leaving behind lessons without fruit. This principle applies to every aspect of life. Every decision postponed, every step deferred, and every hesitation ignored carries consequences in the unseen. What seems small, an unanswered call, a deferred step, a postponed declaration, is often a critical divergence from what heaven has prepared. God does not repeat every moment, because repetition dilutes the power of alignment. When he moves forward, stagnation becomes rebellion. Opportunities that were meant to accelerate your journey instead become benchmarks of preparation for the next window. Momentum is lost when action is not taken in synchrony with instruction, and the strength of provision decreases with every missed yes. Understanding this requires more than awareness. It demands courage. The miracle comes in motion, not hesitation. Every divine command is paired with the empowerment to obey. Yet if inaction dominates, the provision assigned to that moment remains in suspense. Each now carries an expiration. Once the door closes, the assignment moves to someone prepared to respond without hesitation. Waiting beyond the season can obscure vision, dull discernment, and postpone the manifestation of destiny. Your responsibility is simple but urgent. Recognize the opportunity and step through it. God's commands are not meant to trap or intimidate. They are calibrated chances that will bear fruit only in timely obedience. The clock is not ticking against you. It is marking the precise moment for breakthrough. The grace, alignment, and provision ready for your response are all synchronized to this season. Move before grace moves on. Every hesitation risks losing what was designed for your elevation. Act decisively. Move swiftly. Respond fully. Your opportunity is open, but it will not remain so forever. God never called the ready. He prepared the willing. Every instruction, every assignment, every command he places before us is not dependent on our strength or understanding, but on our availability. It is not about what we can do. It is about what he can accomplish through us. Zechariah 4 verse 6 declares, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit." The emphasis is clear. Human effort is not the foundation, yet willingness to step forward opens doors to supernatural provision. When you grasp this, hesitation loses its grip, and limitations begin to crumble under the weight of obedience. Many believers stumble because they assess their capacity instead of recognizing the provision already in motion. Weakness, when surrendered, becomes the stage for God's perfection to manifest. 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9 reminds us, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." The moment you accept that your inability is part of his design, fear dissipates and boldness emerges. God's plan never waited for you to be flawless. It has always relied on your openness to participate. Commitment surpasses clarity every time. You do not need to see the entire path. You need to step where he has called. Consider Moses, who protested his inadequacy, insisting he could not speak properly. Yet Exodus 4 verse 10 to 12 shows God's response. "I will help you speak and teach you what to say." God equips as we engage. Every perceived flaw, every limitation, every hesitation has already been factored into His plan. Your weakness is never an obstacle. It is the canvas on which His strength will paint triumph. The call to act is not an invitation to self-reliance, but an opportunity to embrace divine orchestration. Obedience is not measured by preparation or comfort. It is measured by availability. Heaven moves through hearts that respond, not hands that are capable. Every time you step into the space God designates you, trigger supernatural movement that human understanding cannot anticipate. What feels impossible becomes inevitable, and what seems insufficient becomes overflowing. Your participation, not perfection, sets the mechanism of heaven in motion. Your commitment activates favor, aligns provision, and releases breakthroughs that waiting or overthinking could never produce. Too often believers allow hesitation to masquerade as prudence. They wait for clarity, for courage, or for resources that God has never intended to deliver before the first step. The call is urgent because delay undermines momentum. Every moment spent assessing personal strength is a moment the opportunity begins to slip. God's instructions are calibrated with the resources already aligned in your favor. Your willingness to respond unlocks them. The power has always been in Him. The requirement is simply that you respond with courage and resolve. There is a profound freedom in understanding that the burden of success is not yours to carry. Your role is to stand available to say, "I will go even when the path is unclear." When you surrender, He supplies. When you act, He amplifies. Each act of compliance, no matter how small, is a catalyst for greater works. God does not need your preparation, your perfection, or your plans. He only requires your participation. Your willingness is the ignition for a chain reaction that heaven has already set in motion. Stop rehearsing your limitations. Stop waiting for a moment when everything feels manageable. Step forward in trust. Embrace your assignment with commitment and let God's power flow through the gaps you once feared. Your response is the key. Your engagement is the gateway. Once you act, the machinery of heaven is set into motion, and what seemed impossible becomes tangible. You were not designed to carry the weight alone. You were created to be the vessel of His movement. Make the decision today. Move beyond hesitation. Lean into the call without reservation. The provision, the wisdom, and the strength are already in place. Your courage, your trust, and your commitment complete the equation. Remember, it is never about you. It is about what He accomplishes through you. Friend, you are standing at a crossroads, yet this moment is bigger than you. Every decision, every commitment, every step of alignment is not only shaping your life, it is shaping the generations that will follow. Genesis 22 verse 18 declares, "Through your offspring, all nations will be blessed." This is not just a statement about the distant future. It is a declaration that your yes today becomes the foundation for blessings that will echo through eternity. What you do in this season is constructing more than personal triumph. It is building a heritage of influence, integrity, and victory that your children and grandchildren will inherit. Many believers underestimate the magnitude of their choices. We often think of our actions as isolated events, fleeting moments that affect only ourselves. Yet God's perspective is far wider. Every act of surrender, every step taken in alignment with His call, reverberates far beyond the present. Deuteronomy 7 verse 9 reminds us that He keeps His covenant to 1,000 generations. When your heart responds, you are partnering with a covenant that reaches past your own timeline, planting seeds that will flourish long after your earthly journey is over. Your commitment today writes the script for the stories of those who come after you. Legacy is rarely forged in public recognition. It is often built in quiet moments of courage and perseverance when no one is watching. Psalm 112 verse 2 highlights this truth. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Your courage, your integrity, your willingness to follow the call, even when it is uncomfortable or inconvenient, constructs spiritual architecture that cannot be shaken. One bold step can dismantle cycles of limitation, poverty, or fear that have bound your family for years. Each alignment with God's plan is a brick in the fortress of tomorrow's freedom. This is why hesitation is costly. Every pause delays the ripple effect of your impact. The yes you give today is the inheritance that someone else will carry tomorrow. The hardest step for you often becomes the simplest pathway for your children and those around you. What feels sacrificial in this moment becomes the scaffolding for their opportunities. God does not ask for perfection. He asks for participation, and He multiplies the willing heart. When you yield, the provision, wisdom, and favor are already at work, ensuring that your choice does more than meet your immediate needs. It transforms the trajectory of generations. Consider Abraham, whose faith-filled decisions shaped nations. Each act of commitment, each surrender to God's instructions, was not for Abraham alone. It was a legacy blueprint. Your life functions in the same principle. Every moment you step into God's call, every time you align with His timing and plan, you are actively constructing inheritance. Generational curses are broken, cycles of limitation are interrupted, and a heritage of victory is established. The faithfulness of one person becomes the freedom of many. Legacy is also spiritual and relational. Your example of courage, perseverance, and alignment sets a standard for those who watch you. Your children, your community, your friends, even strangers, absorb the strength of your choices. They learn that dedication and trust are not theoretical. They are lived experiences that produce fruit. What you build is not temporary, it is eternal. Heaven invests in your yes because it sees the unfolding impact of your decisions. You are the builder of more than a life. You are the architect of generations. Every intentional act of alignment with God's plan is a stone laid in the structure of freedom and blessing. Your yes today will become someone else's inheritance tomorrow. The courage you exhibit, the steps you take, the sacrifices you make, they are the currency of legacy. Each one contributes to a heritage that cannot be stolen, diminished, or overlooked. Yet each moment of hesitation gives the enemy a foothold. Every delay, every pause, every whispered excuse gives the enemy room to breathe, to scheme, to keep you bound in what you were created to overcome. But every act of wholehearted surrender shakes its foundations. When you take the step God is calling you to take, even before you feel ready, the forces of darkness begin to tremble. The enemy's greatest dread is not your strength or intelligence. It is your commitment to move when heaven calls. As James 4 verse 7 declares, submit to God, resist the devil and he will flee. Every deliberate step into action ignites this spiritual principle. Resistance collapses and breakthrough emerges. The enemy never strikes at random. Attacks, confusion, and setbacks come most sharply when victory is near. There's a divine pattern. Right before harvest, the storms rage the hardest. Every hesitation allows Satan a foothold. But when you refuse to let intimidation dictate your next move, every act becomes a battlefield victory. The same God who promised deliverance also prepared your path for confrontation and triumph. Romans 16 verse 20 reminds us that the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. The authority you carry is not theoretical. It is operational when you choose action over delay. Consider this. Your yes is a declaration of war. It doesn't need physical weapons, detailed strategies, or even understanding of the full plan. What it needs is a heart aligned with God's call. 1 John 4 verse 4 confirms it. Greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. This means every demonic strategy, every attempt to stall, every voice of doubt that creeps in has already been overpowered by the presence of God in you. Your compliance with his prompting is enough to dismantle spiritual systems that have held others captive for generations. When you act, hell's dominion recoils because it is confronted with authority it cannot contend with. It's natural to sense pressure before a breakthrough. Resistance increases as if the enemy can feel the closing of your hesitation. But this is not a signal to retreat. It is confirmation that your movement matters. Every step of action is an act of spiritual warfare. It is not about fighting with fists, arguing with voices, or even understanding every detail. It's about moving when the command comes, trusting that the same hand that calls you to go has already equipped you to overcome. Delays do not hide danger. They invite confusion, misalignment, and missed opportunities. The power is in your alignment with the moment God has appointed, not in your readiness or strength. Your obedience, when exercised, breaks chains. It disrupts patterns that have allowed oppression to persist, not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you. Every act of compliance to God's instructions is a declaration that the authority of darkness does not belong over your destiny. It is a signal to every unseen adversary that your place, your calling, your assignment will not be compromised. Hell trembles not at the magnitude of your steps, but at the commitment behind them. Every yes is a spiritual earthquake, shaking the enemy's confidence and advancing your purpose. Remember, the fight is not in your hands, it is in your willingness. Stand firm, take the next step, and recognize that your movement triggers unseen forces to align in your favor. The enemy's power is exposed when you act, and heaven's army responds instantly to your courage. Don't underestimate the spiritual impact of your yes. The ground you gain today is not just for this season. It shapes what you will walk in tomorrow, dismantling barriers that have resisted your progress for too long. Your hesitation is a gift to the enemy. Your action is your declaration of victory. Step forward, because the authority you carry will shake everything that opposes you. You don't have to fight, it is already won in heaven. What matters is that you walk forward. Every yes you offer today is a thunderclap in the spiritual realm, a declaration that you will no longer be stalled, a testimony that your obedience terrifies hell. Heaven's army moves when you do. You see, the hardest command you ever obeyed is not meant to end in frustration. It's being sculpted into the story that will ignite hope in others. Every moment you've stepped forward despite uncertainty, every time you moved, even when hesitation whispered, has been building toward a revelation that cannot be measured by human standards. God's timing is perfect, and what feels like struggle is in fact the groundwork for testimony. Genesis 41 verse 52 reminds us, God made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Affliction is never wasted when the heart yields to his call. Every challenge carries the seed of fruitfulness that will flourish beyond what you can see today. Consider the reality: obedience, even when costly, produces outcomes that human effort cannot replicate. What you perceive as limitation, God views as opportunity. The provision you've waited for, the breakthrough you've longed for, and the influence you're stepping into are all birthed in the soil of surrendered action. Romans 8 verse 28 declares, all things work together for good. That includes the pressure, the discomfort, the moments when everything inside you urges retreat. Each of these moments is orchestrated, designed not to harm, but to shape, elevate, and empower you to carry a story that will inspire generations. When you move in alignment with God's instruction, you unlock forces that are already positioned for your advancement. It's crucial to understand that what you endure is not random. Every challenge, every barrier, every season of waiting is a rehearsal for revelation. Revelation comes not in ease, but in endurance, in the willingness to obey when the stakes feel high. Revelation comes when the heart trusts God's promise more than its own comfort. Revelation transforms what was once fear into confidence, hesitation into courage, and trial into triumph. Your obedience, especially when it seemed impossible, does more than fulfill immediate instruction. It positions you as a beacon. People around you may not understand, but they will witness the outcome. Your life becomes the narrative that ignites belief in others, proving that God's power never fails and His plans always succeed. The test you face is actually a threshold. It is not simply an event to endure, but a gateway to transformation. Revelation 12 verse 11 illustrates this principle. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Your story is already part of that legacy. Every act of surrender, every step forward despite uncertainty, is contributing to a testimony that will inspire, heal, and liberate others. What once felt like struggle will become the exact account someone else needs to believe that deliverance is possible. Pain is never wasted when it is coupled with trust and action. The mechanics of this transformation are simple yet profound. When you commit fully, even in weakness, God's power is made perfect through you. Your effort is not measured by human standards, but by alignment with the call you've received. The more courageous the step, the more amplified the result. Your obedience in moments of uncertainty becomes the instrument through which God orchestrates miracles, shifts situations, and rewrites destinies. What once intimidated you now becomes the testimony that will light a path for countless others. Understand this. The story you are living now is a strategic act of influence. You are not just walking through life, you are shaping it for generations. Your next step, however small it may seem, carries the weight of hope and the potential for lasting impact. Every sacrifice, every moment of trust, every action aligned with God's command is writing your testimony in bold ink, visible to those who are watching and waiting for evidence of His power. Your journey is not ordinary, it is extraordinary in the making. Your story isn't over, it's being written in glory ink. The test that once seemed unbearable is now the testimony that will free nations, inspire hearts, and redefine impossible. You are not enduring merely to survive, you are positioned to shine, to lead, and to demonstrate the miraculous reality of God's work in human lives. Your obedience is transforming history, and the testimony you carry will echo for generations to come. Heaven has gone quiet, not because God has paused, but because He's waiting for your decisive action. This is the hour when hesitation can no longer linger in your heart. Every prayer, every act of patience, every season of preparation has led to this pivotal moment. You are not being called to deliberate endlessly or overanalyze every detail. You are being summoned to step into the destiny that has been carefully orchestrated for you. Joshua 1 verse 9 reminds you to be strong and courageous, assuring that you are not alone. Strength does not arrive after hesitation. It is discovered in the very act of stepping forward. The silence you feel is not absence, it is anticipation, the stillness that signals the convergence of preparation and opportunity. You've sought clarity, asked for confirmation, and waited for signs. That season was necessary, but the time for waiting has expired. Heaven's provision is aligned with your readiness to respond, and every second you delay diminishes the momentum that has been gathering unseen. The window of divine timing is narrow and precise. Isaiah 1 verse 19 emphasizes that willingness and action are key to enjoying the abundance God has prepared. The ground is fertile, the doors are open, and your response will determine whether the harvest is gathered or left untouched. Do not let fear dictate your pace or uncertainty dictate your choice. Fear exists to paralyze, but courage exists to fulfill destiny. Think of every leader, every prophet, every person God called into unprecedented impact. Their defining acts were rarely comfortable or simple. Abraham left familiarity behind without knowing the destination, guided only by the voice of God. David faced Goliath armed with faith, not conventional strength. Esther risked her life to speak for a nation. Their victories were not the result of perfect preparation. They were the result of decisive engagement with the calling before them. Your situation mirrors these examples. Every hesitation is an opportunity lost. Every bold step is a breakthrough waiting to happen. Angels are already aligned to your obedience. The heavenly realm does not wait idly. Provision, favor, and protection are in position, ready to release at the exact moment you act. Psalm 37 verse 23 says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord." Notice that God orders steps. They require action. Planning, pondering, and preparation are incomplete without the actual step that activates destiny. Your final response is not measured by the size of the step, but by the alignment of your heart. When you act, the unseen gears of provision begin turning, accelerating outcomes beyond what you can imagine. This is not the time to let doubt narrate your story or to allow caution to dictate the course of your life. The weight of eternity presses upon this moment. Your action carries influence that extends far beyond your immediate circumstances. It touches generations, transforms communities, and establishes foundations that cannot be shaken. Every hesitation gives the enemy space to reposition, but every intentional step disrupts darkness and advances purpose. This hour is prophetic. The clock is moving. God's silence is confirmation, not indecision. Your courage to act, your readiness to align, and your commitment to respond will be remembered in realms you cannot see. This is your final invitation to step fully into what God has prepared. Delay no longer. Strengthen your resolve, quiet every inner hesitation, and advance with clarity. The heavens are watching. Angels wait. Opportunities have converged. Your next step will define your story, echo in eternity, and establish a legacy of purpose. This is the defining act of your season. Every preparation, every prayer, every ounce of perseverance leads to this moment. Be strong, be steadfast, and advance boldly. Your destiny awaits, and nothing will release it except your deliberate response. Heaven has positioned every resource, and the door is open. All that remains is for you to engage. This is your hour, your time, your appointed step. Don't delay. Your obedience in action will set in motion the fulfillment of promises long held in anticipation. Friend, you've circled the mountain long enough. The cloud has moved and destiny is calling you forward. Every delay, every hesitation, every moment of second guessing ends here. God's instruction is no longer a suggestion. It is an invitation to rise, to step into the fullness of what has been prepared for you. Habakkuk 2 verse 3 reminds us that even if fulfillment seems slow, it will come, and your readiness to act is what aligns you with its arrival. The season of waiting is over. The season of decisive engagement has begun. Every doubt that once held you captive has lost its power. Every voice that whispered uncertainty has been silenced by the clarity of your calling. You've been trained through challenges, refined through trials, and prepared for elevation that only comes when hesitation is replaced with courage. Philippians 1 verse 6 assures us that the work begun in your life will be completed by God's unerring hand, and your action is the spark that releases the acceleration already waiting in motion. Faith is not passive. It moves before evidence, stands before results, and steps before the outcome is visible. Now is the time to claim the authority that has been yours all along. The mountain you faced is not an obstacle, it is a stage. The steps you take today will echo far beyond this moment, activating power that affects generations. Romans 8 verse 31 declares that if God is for you, no opposition can withstand the force of heaven aligning with your yes. You are chosen for this hour, for this challenge, for this triumph. Everything around you is shifting into place to respond to your willingness to advance boldly with courage and with unwavering commitment. This is not just another step. It is the manifestation of everything God has been preparing through years of preparation and seasons of patience. Your readiness releases heaven's acceleration, making the invisible visible. What you begin in courage, God will perfect in power. Every step forward carries eternal weight. Every act of confidence in this moment becomes a ripple that transforms circumstances, communities, and even destinies. You are not walking alone. Every unseen force of provision, every promise of guidance, every power prepared for your alignment is poised to respond the instant you rise. So rise with the authority that belongs to you. Step into the promise that has been prepared long before this day. Let courage define your pace. Let resolve carry